Duck is very proud of being Great Western. He talks endlessly about it, but he works hard too and makes everything go like clockwork. It was a splendid day. The cars and coaches behaved well. The passengers even stopped grumbling. But the engines didn't like having to bustle about. There are two ways of doing things, Duck told them. The Great Western way or the wrong way. I'm Great Western and don't we know it, they groaned. The engines were glad when a visitor came. He purred smoothly towards them. Sir Topham had introduced him. Here is Diesel. I have agreed to give him a trial. He needs to learn. Please teach him, Duck. Good morning, purred Diesel in an oily voice. Pleased to meet you, Duck. Is that James and Henry and Gordon too? I am delighted to meet such famous engines. The silly engines were flattered. He has very good manners, they murmured. We're pleased to have him in our yard. Duck had his doubts. Come on, he said. Diesel purred after him. Your worthy Sir Topham hat to you, ordered Duck. Diesel looked hurt. Your worthy Sir Topham hat thinks I need to learn. He is mistaken. We Diesels don't need to learn. We know everything. We come to a yard and improve it. We are revolutionary. Oh, said Duck. If you're Rev-a-thingamy, perhaps you would collect my cars while I fetch Gordon's coaches. Diesel, delighted to show off, purred away. When Duck returned, Diesel was trying to take some cars from a siding. They were old and empty. They'd not been touched for a long time. Diesel found them hard to move. Pull! Push! Backwards, forwards! Oh! Oh! The cars groaned. We can't! We won't! Duck watched with interest. Diesel lost patience. He roared and gave a great heave. The cars jerked forward. Oh! They screamed. We can't! We won't! Some of their brakes snapped and the gear jammed in the sleepers. Chuckled Duck. Diesel recovered and tried to push the cars back, but they wouldn't move. Duck ran quietly round to collect the other cars. Thank you for arranging these, Diesel. I must go now. Don't you want this lot? No, thank you. Diesel gulped. And I've taken all this trouble? Why didn't you tell me? You never asked me. Besides, said Duck, you were having such fun being whatever it was you said. Goodbye. Diesel had to help the workmen clear the mess. He hated it. All the cars were laughing and singing at him. Cars are waiting in the yard, tackling them with Diesel. Show the world what I can do, gaily boasts the Diesel. In and out he creeps about like a big black weasel. When he pulls the wrong cars out, pop goes the Diesel. Growled Diesel and scuttled away to sulk in the shed. Diesel, the new engine, was sulking. The freight cars would not stop singing rudely at him. Duck was horrified. Shut up, he ordered, and bumped them hard. I'm sorry our cars were rude to you, Diesel. Diesel was still furious. It's all your fault. You made them laugh at me. Nonsense, said Henry. Duck would never do that. We engines have our differences, but we never talk about them to the cars. That would be disgraceful, said Gordon.
Disgusting,
put in James. Despicable, finished Henry. Diesel hated Duck. He wanted him to be sent away, so he made a plan. He was going to tell lies about Duck. Next day, he spoke to the cars. I see you like jokes. You made a good joke about me yesterday. I laughed and laughed. Duck told me one about Gordon. I'll whisper it. Don't tell Gordon I told you.
and he sniggered away.
Ha, 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 guffawed the cars. Gordon will be cross with Duck when he knows. Let's tell him and get back at Duck for bumping us. They laughed rudely at the engines as they went by. Soon Gordon, Henry, and James found out why. Disgraceful, said Gordon.
Disgusting,
put in James. Despicable, finished Henry. We cannot allow it. They consulted together. Yes, they said. He did it to us, we'll do it to him, and see how he likes it. Duck was tired out. The cars had been cheeky and troublesome. He wanted a rest in the shed. Three engines barred his way. Keep out. Stop fooling, said Duck. I'm tired. So are we, hissed the engines. We are tired of you. We like Diesel. We don't like you. You tell tales about us to the cars. I don't. You do. I don't. You do. Sir Topham Hatt came to stop the noise. Duck called me a galloping sausage, spluttered Gordon.
rusty red scrap iron,
hissed James. I'm old Square Wheels, fumed Henry. Well, Duck? Duck considered. I only wish, sir, he said gravely, that I'd thought of those names myself, if the dome fits. He made cars laugh at us, accused the engines. Sir Topham Hatt recovered. He'd been trying not to laugh himself. Did you, Duck? Certainly not, sir. No steam engine would be as mean as that. Diesel lurked up. Now, Diesel, you heard what Duck said. I can't understand it, sir. To think that Duck, of all engines, I'm dreadfully grieved, sir, but know nothing. I see, said Sir Topham Hatt. Diesel squirmed and hoped he didn't. I'm sorry, Duck, but you must go to Edward's station for a while. I know he will be glad to see you. As you wish, sir. Duck trundled sadly away, while Diesel smirked with triumph. Everyone knows that tenders are a mark of distinction. One morning, Gordon was in the yard taking on a large supply of coal. That's the third load of coal you've had today, Gordon, said James. Some might say you're being rather greedy. I'm an important engine, replied Gordon. Important engines need plenty of coal, but I doubt if you would understand that, James. James snorted and went about his work. Later, Gordon was taking on water from a standpipe because the water tower was under repair. I wouldn't drink too much of that water if I were you, Gordon. It might give you boiler ache. said Gordon. What's this? Educating Gordon Day? First James, now you, Duck. Big engines have big needs. Little engines are just annoying. Don't say I didn't warn you, laughed Duck. Later, Gordon steamed into the yard at the big station. That's what I need, exclaimed Gordon. There, emerging out of the sheds, were two shiny tenders. Now, if I had two tenders, said Gordon, I wouldn't need to stop so often, and I wouldn't have to listen to silly little engines. Those tenders belong to a visitor, replied his driver. Diesel sidled up alongside. Everyone knows that tenders are a mark of distinction, but I'm afraid that no amount of tenders will save you in the end. We Diesels are taking over, and we don't need tenders to make us important, not even one. Gordon was most upset. He was feeling just the same next day. I'm not happy. I know, said Duck. It's boiler ache. It's not boiler ache, protested Gordon. It's... Of course it is, interrupted Henry. That water's bad. Have a good washout. Then you'll feel a different engine. Your boiler must be full of sludge. Don't be vulgar, huffed Gordon. He backed down onto his train, hissing mournfully. Cheer up, Gordon, said Sir Topham Hatt. I can't, sir. Is it true what Diesel says, sir? What does he say? That Diesels are taking over. Don't worry, Gordon. That will never happen on my railway. One more thing, sir. Why did the visitor have two tenders? Because he lives on a railway with long distances between coaling depots. Gordon felt better. But Henry started complaining. He banged some cars angrily. I always work hard enough for two, he puffed. I deserve another tender. Duck whispered something to Donald. He was going to play a trick on Henry. Henry, he asked, would you like my tenders? Yours? What have you got to do with tenders? All right, said Duck. The deal's off. Would you like them, Donald? I wouldn't deprive you of the honor, replied Donald. It is a great honor, continued Duck thoughtfully, but I'm only a tank engine. Perhaps James might... I'm sorry I was rude, said Henry hastily. How many tenders have you, and when could I have them? I have 6, and you can have them this evening. 6 lovely tenders, chortled Henry. What a splendid sight I'll be. Henry was excited all day. Do you think it will be all right? He asked for the umpteenth time. Of course, said Duck. They're all ready now. The other engines waited where they could each get a good view. But Henry wasn't a splendid sight at all. His 6 tenders were very old, dirty, and filled with boiler sludge. Had a good washout, Henry, called a voice. That's right. You'll feel a different engine now. Henry was not sure, but he thought the voice belonged to Gordon. Later, Diesel bumped the car so hard that the loads went. Duck and Percy enjoy their work at the harbor, pulling and pushing cars full of cargo to and from the quay. But one morning, the engines were exhausted. The harbor was busier than ever. Sir Topham Hatt promised that another engine would be found to help them. Huh, it's about time, said Percy. I ache so much I can hardly get my wheels to move, agreed Duck. They waited for the engine to arrive. It came as a shock when he did. Good morning, squirmed Diesel in his oily voice. The 2 engines had not worked with Diesel for a long time. What are you doing here? Gasped Duck. Your worthy Sir Topham Hatt sent me. I hope you are pleased to see me again. I am to shunt some dreadfully tiresome cars. Shunt where? Said Percy suspiciously. Where? Why, from here to there, purred Diesel, and then again from there to here. Easy, isn't it? With that, Diesel, as if to make himself quite clear, bumped some cars hard. Oh! Screamed the cars. Grrr! Growled Diesel. Percy and Duck were horrified. They did not trust Diesel at all. They refused to work and would not leave their shed. Sir Topham Hatt was enjoying his tea and iced bun when the telephone rang. So there's trouble in the harbor yard? I'll be there right away. Diesel was working loudly and alone. Cargo lay on the quay. Ships and passengers were delayed. Everyone was complaining about Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Percy and Duck were sulking in their shed. What's all this? Demanded Sir Topham Hatt. We're on strike, sir, said Percy nervously. Yes, added Duck. Beg pardon, sir, but we won't work with Diesel, sir. You said you sent him packing, sir. I have to give Diesel a second chance, replied Sir Topham Hatt. I'm trying to help you by bringing Diesel here. Now you must help me. He was the only engine available. Percy and Duck went sadly back to work. Next morning, things were no better. Diesel's driver had not put his brakes on properly, and Diesel started to move. He went bump straight into Percy. Wake up there, Percy, scowled Diesel. You have work to do. He didn't even say he was sorry to Percy. Later, Diesel bumped the cars so hard that the loads went everywhere. What will Sir Topham Hatt say? Gasped Percy. He won't like it, said Duck. So who's going to tell him, I wonder? Two goody-goody tattletales like you, I suppose? Percy and Duck did not want to be tattletales, so they said nothing. Diesel, thinking he could get away with his bad behavior, was ruder than ever. Next day, he was shunting freight cars full of china clay. He banged the cars hard into the buffers, but the buffers weren't secure. The silly cars were sunk. Sir Topham Hatt heard the news. The cars were hoisted safely from the sea, but the clay was lost. Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Diesel. The harbor master has told me everything. Things worked much better here before you arrived. I shall not be inviting you back. Now, Duck and Percy, I hope you won't mind having to handle the work by yourselves again. Oh, no, sir. Yes, please, sir, replied the engines. Whistling cheerfully, they puffed back to work, while Diesel sulked slowly away.
The engines on the island of Sodor like feeling responsible, reliable, and really useful. They work hard to complete their jobs on time. They don't like confusion and delay. But the troublesome trucks delight in mischief, and their mischief causes trouble, as poor Henry found out. Henry has had an accident and been sent for repairs, said Sir Topham Hatt. There are no other engines available, so Diesel will help until Henry returns. Yes, sir, puffed the engines, but they weren't happy. The engines didn't like Diesel. He was always being rude and always showing off. I hope Henry's mended soon, said Percy. He moves more trucks than 3 Diesels put together, agreed Thomas. Trucks are no one's friends, huffed Gordon. The next day, Diesel was working at the docks. When Sir Topham Hatt sees how good I am, he bragged to the trucks, he'll get rid of steam engines once and for all. This gave the troublesome trucks an idea. As Diesel shunted them together, they started to sing. Is that all you can haul? Henry's loads are longer. Is that all you can haul? Henry must be stronger. Diesel was cross. He was sure that he was stronger than Henry. I'll push you all at the same time, he said. The trucks giggled. Push us all, that's the longest. Push us all, you'll be the strongest. That's me, said Diesel, the world's strongest engine. And Diesel shunted 5 trucks together, then 10, then 15. Soon he had an enormous line of 20 trucks. What's Diesel doing? Cried Percy. He thinks he's the world's strongest engine, replied Thomas. Diesel didn't know the shunters had set the brakes on the trucks. The troublesome trucks knew, but encouraged Diesel to push anyway. Push, push, push! Diesel pushed, and he pushed, and he pushed. But the trucks didn't move, so Diesel decided to pull the trucks instead. Heave ho, you can pull, but we won't go, sang the trucks. This made Diesel very cross. He pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled. Help! Grease and oil, Diesel sulked, as the trucks laughed and laughed. Sir Topham Hatt looked down crossly at Diesel. I thought you would be a proper dockyard Diesel, but I was wrong, he said. Can you make up for lost time, Henry? Oh, yes, sir, Henry replied happily. He backed up to the trucks and the shunters released the brakes. Then Henry pulled away as easy as pie. And the engines cheered. Diesel was sent home in disgrace. But the engines had learned a lesson. Even troublesome trucks can do you a favor sometimes, chuffed Thomas. Like getting rid of a smelly old diesel, puffed Percy.
Hey, you. You really are the stinkiest steam engine on Sodor, Thomas.
Thomas and the Stinky Cheese. The island of Sodor is beautiful all year round. In the summer, the hedges are full of brightly colored birds. The fields are full of animals, and the smell of wildflowers fills the air. Thomas was at the coaling plant. He was shunting freight cars with Diesel, Ari, and Bert. Thomas didn't like working with diesel engines, and the diesel engines didn't like working with Thomas.
The problem with working with steamies is that they are much too stinky.
And Thomas is the most stinky steamy ever. Diesel, Ari, and Bert laughed and laughed. It's not steamies who are stinky, Thomas puffed crossly. It's the diesels. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt arrived at the yard. Thomas, I need you to go to the dairy. There is a delivery waiting for you there. Thomas was happy to be away from the diesels. He was pleased to be going to the dairy. Maybe I will be taking cream to the chocolate factory, he tooted. But when Thomas arrived at the dairy, his freight cars were full of stinky cheese. Yuck, huffed Thomas. That's the stinkiest cheese I have ever smelled. You must take it to the docks before the ship leaves, said the dairy foreman. Thomas buffered up. Then he puffed to the docks with the stinky cheese. "Bust my buffers," said Thomas. "Everyone will smell this cheese for miles." Thomas saw Diesel waiting at a junction. "Oh, no," moaned Thomas. "If Diesel smells how stinky I am, he'll tell everyone that I really am the stinkiest engine on Sodor. And I don't want everyone to think I'm stinky," he puffed. Thomas backed quickly along the track. "Thomas, stop!" the signalman called. "If you go that way, you'll be late." But Thomas had already gone. Thomas raced through the countryside. "No one will smell how stinky I am now," he chuffed. But then Thomas saw Ari waiting in a siding. "Oh no, it's Ari," moaned Thomas. "I can't let him smell how stinky I am." So Thomas backed quickly away and turned left at the next junction. Next, Thomas saw Bert. So this time he turned right. "Wherever I go, there are diesel engines," chuffed Thomas. Thomas puffed backwards and forwards across the island. He wanted to stay away from Diesel, Ari, and Bert. But then there was trouble. "Oh no," groaned Thomas. "I'm back at the dairy, right where I started." Suddenly, Thomas saw Ari rumbling towards him. Thomas backed away as fast as he could. But he didn't see Bert pulling up behind him. Thomas bumped into Bert, and the stinky cheese shot into the air and splattered down all over Thomas, Bert, and Ari. "Now we're really stinky," moaned Ari.
The most stinky engines ever,
groaned Bert. Ari and Bert rushed straight to the washdown. Thomas wanted to go to the washdown too, but Thomas's cheese was all over the track. "What am I going to do?" he puffed sadly. Then the dairy foreman arrived. "Thomas, there is another cheese load ready at the dairy. But you'll have to puff quickly," said the foreman. "The boat is waiting for you." Soon Thomas was racing to the docks with a new delivery of cheese. Thomas could smell the stinky cheese. "Phew," he wished. But he knew he had to carry on. "Must get to the docks, must get to the docks," he chuffed. "Oh, yeah, what a smelly delivery," wished James as he passed. Even though his friends could smell the stinky cheese, Thomas chuffed on. When he arrived at the docks, Diesel was there being unloaded.
"Hey, you! You really are the stinkiest steam engine on Sodor, Thomas,"
he oiled. "Thomas has brought the stinky cheese," cheered the dock workers. "Well done, Thomas," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Sodor cheese is famous for being really stinky. And this is the most stinky Sodor cheese I have ever smelled. You are a really useful engine." "Thank you, sir," puffed Thomas. "Now go to the washdown," added Sir Topham Hatt. Just then, Harry and Bert arrived at the docks. They were shiny, clean, and fresh from the washdown. "Diesel, Harry, and Bert," boomed Sir Topham Hatt. "Now you can shunt the stinky cheese." "Oh, no," groaned Harry, Diesel, and Bert. "Hee-hew," puffed Thomas. "What a stink!"